So cryptocurrency has been on fire over the past couple of weeks. Part of it has been maybe a meltdown in the market. Part of it maybe has been Elon Musk. We're going to dive into this today with none other than Ben Armstrong from BitBoy Crypto. My name is Paul Barron. This is TechPath. And as you guys know, we try to cover a lot of these kind of forward-thinking innovation topics around tech, and cryptocurrency, of course, is the biggest one. I want to welcome to the show Ben Armstrong. Man, great to see you.
Thank you for having me on the show. Definitely excited anytime I can talk about crypto.
Absolutely. So I love the fact that you guys have really kind of taken the charge on looking at what Elon Musk has been doing over the past few weeks, and kind of not necessarily in a good way, just saying, listen, you need to get your facts right, get more educated, all those kinds of things. Want to kind of get your input on where this is going, because this could have longer ramifications in the crypto universe. Where do you see the situation in terms of influencers like Elon, and we can also reference someone like a Michael Saylor as well, but like Elon making these most recent moves, and what kind of impacts do you see early on?
Well, I think what we need, to be honest with you, I know in crypto we really hate regulation because, like, Bitcoin was birthed out of basically a libertarian movement, which, I definitely lean that way myself, but I'm also a realist to know that in the United States, they're going to regulate everything. And when it comes to seeing what has happened with the crypto markets due to what Elon has said, I think that's not good for crypto. The fact one man can have that much power that he can come on and pump or dump the price of Bitcoin that's over $1 trillion market cap just by typing a few words out. And it would be one thing if it was like he just came out and made a statement about it, but he's flip-flopping. He's going back and forth. And it just seems like, what a coincidence. He seems to be doing it at what would be, the best time to either buy or sell based on what Tesla is doing, in the crypto markets with, their $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin that they had, which, by the way, they sold 10% of that, which was $272 million near the top. And they came out and announced that. They said to test the liquidity. Well, what a coincidence they did that right before Elon came in and dumped the price by saying the Bitcoin's got a bad environmental impact, which he said just a few weeks before he didn't think it was that big of a deal. So I think we do need to have some kind of clarification and regulation when it comes to what are influencers or YouTubers like myself, like, what are we allowed to say? What are we not allowed to say? Where does it borderline on market manipulation, especially when it's self-interest and for self-gain? So that is the one thing I do think that a lot of people I know in the space, like, they want that clarification to know whether they're doing the right things or not. But when it comes to Elon specifically and Tesla, I really personally think that this could be a play for them to eventually come into the mining game. We know Elon just met with the North American Bitcoin Conference or Council. I can't remember which one it is, but the point is that he met with them about mining and about making mining data more public. Well, who could take advantage of that? It makes sense that since Tesla is got so big, they made more money on Bitcoin this year than they made in several years with their actual cars and products. Okay. So it makes sense to think that Tesla might be interested into getting into the Bitcoin mining game if they can develop a clean way to mine Bitcoin, which, by the way, they just moved to Texas, which has all the infrastructure and space available to run a large scale mining operation. And on one hand, it's like, is he really just doing, serving his self-interest, which I think I can make argument he does on almost everything he does. But on the other hand of it is like, well, we do need more mining in America. America has 5.7% of the Bitcoin hash rate, whereas China's got like almost 70% by some estimates. So we don't want a communist country that has no actual public business or private businesses where everything is basically government owned. If they just come in and say, sign it over to us, we don't want that. Now, it's not very easy for China to go in and just take over all the hash rate and take over Bitcoin. But with it there, the majority of it's not good. So, even if Elon is doing self-serving interest through creating some kind of mining operation, that would be a good thing for Bitcoin to get a little more decentralized with where it's being mined at. And then certainly America, we want a piece of that pie.
Yeah, well, we've done a video on kind of Elon's master plan. That was one of the scenarios we were looking at. We follow Tesla quite a bit. In their Q1, Bitcoin was part of their earnings. In fact, if you look at both crypto, you look at the energy saving or the credits, energy credits, governmental credits, and then their profitability from their cars, all those together made it a nice quarter for them. At the same time, this is kind of an interesting timing for cryptocurrency to be coming back right now, because as we are recording this, Bitcoin has bumped 40,000. We've started to see a little bit of a correction, especially in the altcoins, which I want to talk to you about. But it's interesting because Q2 ends end of June. And we have seen some reports where if Tesla has to take a loss in the Q2, they would actually have to realize that loss if basically on the lowest price in that quarter, which would have been around the $32,000, $31,000 mark, which would be a huge loss for Tesla because they were acquired at a much higher rate. So it is very interesting to see this happening. I'm just surprised, and you as probably, well, the largest crypto channel out there on the interwebs is,
That's right.
And I love that. I always expect a great intro from you when I'm watching your channel.
Thank you, appreciate that.
But the point is, when you have Elons of the world, and now Michael Saylor has launched his podcast, you've got Pompliano over there, which is, he does a lot of other things, but he really pushes cryptocurrency on a heavy level. I'm just kind of wondering how far down the line we will start to see regulation, even on our own channels here in media, especially because of what Elon's been able to get away with over the past few years. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to flip the interview. I'm going to ask you a question. Like, don't you think that that's something probably that we need to some extent?
It's a good thing, 100%. Yeah. We've been in journalism and running insights and data analysis in different industries for about a decade now. We jumped into tech and really kind of moved heavily into this space over the past few years. And I've been a little bit surprised outside of the mainstream media that, when you look at the channels, the media, Twitter channels, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, the tech pundits that are out there, is that I don't know that a lot of them take the heavier responsibility. That's why I follow your channel, because I feel like you guys take a real hard look at it from a very responsible position. And I think that's going to be needed, one, because we are now in a big education phase. Huge. You had to go to Texas and kind of teach lawmakers how this thing works. So it's going to be important for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I think what a lot of people, like, we don't know what Elon Musk is really doing. Like, we have some inklings of what we think he could be doing. We've got some best guesses. Like, is he just playing with us all? Is this just a big game to him to mock regulation?
Troll.
It might be. Like, it really might be. So we don't know for sure that he's doing this from a self-serving interest, but we would surmise that if someone has the power to do that, that they could do that and that they might do that. Well, on my channel, I have the power to do that, and we don't do that because we do take that responsibility extremely heavy. And we think that is why we're the biggest channel, because my audience knows that. And because over time, I've proven over and over again, like, I'm not going to do things that are going to help me and hurt my audience. I care more about them. I'm fine. Like, I've made money. I want my audience to continue growing. I want crypto adoption. That's why we just paid out of our own pocket to go to Texas and talk to the legislators. They said they could reimburse us on the expenses. We said, no, we want to do this. Like, we want to take crypto mainstream. So we think the regulation is needed. And, like, it feels like a little backwards for somebody in crypto to say that. But for a person that's in this space, specifically social media, influencing, YouTube, that would help me, other than the SEC, like, hey, by the way, we have some suggestions on what people may want to do. Like, no, we want clarification on what we should be saying, how we should be saying it, what we're allowed to do with our personal portfolios in regards to what we're talking about on videos. But when you've got Michael Saylor and Elon Musk, like, we don't know, like, what level they're playing on when it comes to, pumping their own bags or whatever. I'd like to think they're not doing that. Michael Saylor's all pump and no dump. So I think that's okay. If all you do is come out and talk about how good you think Bitcoin is going to be and you're not flip-flopping, I don't have any problem with that. It's the flip-flopping from Elon Musk, and we know the high level of investment that his company has that makes you wonder what's really going on. So we don't know that, but we do know that it is the thing that gets kind of caught in the crossfire here is the regular Bitcoin investor who's getting crushed when they bought at 52K, which should have been a floor. It should have been a bottom for Bitcoin. The price had dropped from around 60 all the way down to 52 in just a matter of days. And then right when it was at the bottom, right when it was at 52K, where a lot of people felt positive about buying back in, that's when Elon Musk tweets. He always tweets stuff at the bottom of a big dump, and it pushes it down further. And that's where the really suspicious behavior comes in. So I definitely think that something is needed. But here's the thing. We got the SEC, we have the CFTC, we have the, these are letters I never thought I'd know at one point in my life, but we got the SEC, the CFTC, and also the Treasury Department all fighting over who's in charge of crypto. Nobody knows. Right. Nobody knows who's in charge of the regulation. So I think it's going to be a long time before we get clarity on this. We need not necessarily an independent, I mean, it'll probably be a government organization, but we need some kind of regulatory commission or body to come in that knows crypto, that understands crypto, not people that were just elected and they don't know about tech. Like, we need people in this industry working together to create common sense laws when it comes to this regulation.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, especially when you look at the kind of the domino effect that has occurred on a global scale. You see China obviously pole positioning their own digital yuan, kind of really in a position where they've kind of pushed the miners to the hilt in terms of being able to essentially push them out of what is the largest crypto mining facilities in the world. With that kind of playing into this, I go back to your point, and one we've talked about is this could really, kind of fall into Tesla's hands, because they're probably one of the one or two companies in the US that could literally come out with some kind of sustainable mining rig or system that would help the United States become a major, essentially a major market for mining in the future, which could be interesting on the regulation side, because that could be a scenario where the US could start to kind of help set the global stage, much like we've done with the fiat dollar, in the sense of being able to help structure the rest of the world on digital currency and or digital assets moving forward in the next 10 years. It's going to be a real interesting play. I want to pose something to you. When you look at where cryptocurrency is right now and where it could be just in a decade, just 2030, the opportunity here for a PR campaign or some sort of awareness outside of what's happening on YouTube, Twitter, social media, because that's still the early adopters. Do you think that would be a good thing for cryptocurrency at this state?
You mean like positive marketing basically for crypto is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I tell you what, I mean, I haven't ever thought about that before, but that sure is a great idea. I mean, we go back and we look at probably a bad comparison, the war on drugs campaigns, they used to the anti-drug. Yeah. Well, we know who lost that one is everybody. But when it comes to something like crypto, we do know that the thing that's holding crypto back, the words Ponzi schemes, the word scam, words that can just be
criminal activity.
Illicit activity, bad for the environment. We have all this stuff that's thrown out there that there's no accountability for the people on social media that say those things. There's no accountability for people who push these narratives around the world, whether it's person to person or coming from a government official or whatever it may be. There's no accountability for these people. When someone comes out and can say, well, Bitcoin's, bad for the environment. Well, let's actually look at the numbers, and when we dig into them, you're going to find that a lot of that's narrative based. When you talk about Bitcoin is used in criminal activity, well, the number one currency used in the history of mankind for criminal activity is the US dollar, which also can be described as a Ponzi scheme when you really start digging into that. A fiat currency that's worthless, that's able to be printed at will, basically to keep printing out money to cover the inflation that is caused by printing more money. So I do think that an educational campaign would be something that could be incredible. And I think I'm going to go do that right now. So I'm going to go start that. So thanks for the suggestion. But I do think a public awareness campaign. First. Hey, we just released it. We'll go put a billboard up in my backyard. So what we want to do, though, is we do got to make sure that the messaging is very positive. But also, like what I try to do on my channel is always preach personal responsibility. Preach to people that we don't know what the markets are going to do. There is a lot of volatility. That's what allows us to make money in crypto. So you have to be able to kind of weed out these negative narratives that aren't necessarily true and push people to do their own research and own education on things. Like, Bitcoin is not a Ponzi scheme. People that say
Right.
that, they have no clue what they're talking about. But there are things in crypto that are Ponzi schemes. And so that's also where kind of the regulation comes in as well. But I think a public awareness campaign for Bitcoin is a fantastic idea.
Yeah. Let's look at one last area around this because it kind of relates to what is happening with Elon and Saylor and the likes, is that we've seen over the past, I'd say 30 to 60 days, a real impact from sentiment analysis data coming in. We track sentiment analysis here. We also use tools like Trade the Chain, Glassnode, et cetera. There's a lot of tool sets that are starting to move in that direction. And actually we had the guys from Token Metrics on here recently talking about this, is that the implementation of technical analysis and sentiment data is started to merge together. And then you have someone like a Goldman Sachs jumping in and classifying it as an asset class now. How much I won't call it interference, but how much activity do you think is going to start guiding the crypto markets now from traditional investors and institutional investment money versus what has been somewhat of a social experiment driving the price over the last few years?
Yeah, so I had a great idea at one point, and we started trying to do it, but then it just got to be a little complicated. It's a meter that measures sentiment, and it's called the centimeter. You got to admit, that's pretty good. The centimeter. We never did it, though. It never took off. But the idea is, there is definitely a social influence in crypto. And I would say you really hit the nail on the head talking about the traditional institutional money coming into Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is why really you're not an early adopter if you buy Bitcoin right now. You are not an early adopter if you buy Ethereum right now. You're an early adopter if you bought Ethereum when it crashed and it was $100. Back in 2020. We've now passed that point for those two coins. Because for Ethereum and for Bitcoin, the institutional money is here. Grayscale is here. Goldman is in. We got all these, banks that are jumping in. We got Bank of America writing reports on how they're fine with Bitcoin, but they're scared of DeFi. And that's the clue to people, is that if you want to be an early adopter, if you really want to be involved in disruptive technology where you have the great opportunity to make a lot of money, you need to start looking down the list at the other altcoins like Cardano or Polkadot. Binance Coin to some extent. Some of the coins, Engine, Polygon, some of these projects are in the top 50 or so that still have the opportunity to move up based on social sentiment. Because what we saw, and I will tell you this, what we saw a few weeks ago, or I guess it was early last week at the time of this recording, in terms of the Bitcoin crash, the gigantic dump where the price dropped 55% in a day, 60% for Ethereum. 55 and 60% from their highs, but dropped over 40% in a day. The sentiment had never been higher. The sentiment had never been higher. And we know that because our YouTube numbers were cranking. We were getting more viewers every single day and everything was positive. But you know what happened? The prices were manipulated down. And what you see is when Bitcoin, Ethereum move, you have these other altcoins that move down too. But the goal for these people is for Bitcoin, Ethereum to be able to get better entry prices. They don't care about an entry price in general for Polygon or Cartesi or any other project that's in the top 200 or 300. They just care about those two right now. Once that money shifts to Cardano, Chainlink, some of these other projects, then at that point, you're going to be susceptible to the same thing. So you can watch the sentiment regarding some of the other coins, but regarding Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's no longer talking about its institutional money coming. They're here, and we're seeing the effect on the market.
Yeah, and we've been analyzing this for quite some time on the whole moves, especially around Bitcoin and Ethereum. Do you think, though, with the activities that have occurred over the last week, especially on Sunday, over the last weekend, which was really kind of the big mark that we started to see, a lot of institutional activities, if you were watching the charts candle by candle, if you were doing 10-minute candles or anything really getting granular, you could see the liquidity pools being gobbled up left and right. I had never seen chart activity like that before, especially around Bitcoin. Bitcoin was just clearly looked like it was being manipulated by big money and a large amount of structured investment. So if that's the case, how do you feel going forward now that I think Bitcoin investors, whether you're a retail investor or not, how do you feel about going forward with Bitcoin? Do you feel like it's still a safe bet? Do you feel like this is something we just have to be a lot more cautious about?
I mean, personally, I feel like Bitcoin is still a safe bet. When you zoom out and you look at the fact that as of 6 weeks ago, or however long ago it was when we hit 64K, every person who had ever invested in Bitcoin in history who had not sold out was in the positive. And I think that tells you everything you need to know with as much volatility as Bitcoin's experienced over the years. To be able to make a statement like that is pretty phenomenal. So I think when you zoom out and you look at what's coming in the future, I do think we will see Bitcoin going to much higher prices over time. And that's why I talk to two kinds of people. You talk to the kind of person that's like, I want to get in, I want to make a bunch of money, I want to get out. You have other people that say, I'm just going to buy Bitcoin and just see what it does. I don't care about the money. I mean, I want it to go up in value, but if I lose it, I lose it. And, we call them the hodlers in crypto. For the people who hodl, just buy it wherever you want to buy it at, because it is going to go up. For your people that are going to try to play the markets, I believe right now is a good time to get in with prices, around 40K or lower. Obviously, around 30K would have been great if you could have got in at that point. But I think at the end of this year, we will still see a bear market, and I'm much more confident in that we will see a big bear market now than I was before. I have been saying I thought we would see maybe 65% drop in this bear market, but we had a 55% drop for Bitcoin in a matter of weeks. So because of that, I feel very strongly we will see another bear market where prices drop an average of 85% for Bitcoin, 90% for altcoins. So for those people, it is important to play the market, to have the shorter term mindset. So try to buy in now, and then the prices go up and then sell out near the top. We think that'll be somewhere in the 6-figure range. But I think that, we got to confirm that we're not in a premature bear market right now before it feels really safe to tell people. But I'm leaning much more towards that direction. But, don't be fooled. The institutional money is here, but the Bitcoin actual price and its cycle is not driven by the institutional money. It's and I know that may sound a little counterintuitive based on what I said a few minutes ago, but it's driven by the Bitcoin halving. When the production of Bitcoin is cut in half every 4 years, like right now it's 900 Bitcoin being produced per day. It's going to be 450 in 3 years. It's going to be 225 per day in 7 years. That has such a big effect on the market. When you look at something like oil, where they barely cut production and you watch the prices skyrocket, we're cutting 50% in half every 4 years. So even though the institutional money is here and the big corporate money is here, like from PayPal and MicroStrategy, Square, some of these companies, I mean, they're still going to be in competition with each other, and that halving event is still going to cause that supply shock to the mining, which is the other big group that really controls the price of Bitcoin, based on having to sell out and have, sell their Bitcoin in order to buy more equipment or keep mining operations going. Those things are going to continue. I think that it's going to continue until we hit an equilibrium where maybe the market cap is around $20 trillion or something like that, and it just can't be moved very easily. We'll certainly see a slowing down the volatility. But if this last few weeks has not proven anything else, we aren't there yet.